Sai Academy GS Research Center presents Audiobook of Economics Class 9th. This is page number 1, Chapter 1, The Story of Village Palampur. Overview. The purpose of the story is to introduce some basic concepts relating to production, and this we do through a story of a hypothetical village called Palampur. Farming is the main activity in Palampur, whereas several other activities such as small scale manufacturing, dairy, transport, etc. are carried out on a limited scale. These production activities need various types of resources such as natural resources, man-made items, human effort, money, etc. As we read through the story of Palampur, we will learn how various resources combine to produce the desired goods and services in the village. Introduction. Palampur is well connected with neighboring villages and towns. Raiganj, a big village, is 3 kilometers from Palampur. An all-weather road connects the village to Raiganj and further on to the nearest small town of Sahapur. Many kinds of transport are visible on this road, starting from bullock carts, tongas, bogies, that is wooden cart drawn by buffaloes, loaded with jaggery, that is good, and other commodities to motor vehicles like motorcycles, jeeps, tractors, and trucks. This village has about 450 families belonging to several different castes. The 80% caste families own the majority of land in the village. Their houses, some of them quite large, are made of brick with cement plastering. The SCs, that is Dalits, comprise one third of the population and live in one corner of the village and in much smaller houses, some of which are of mud and straw. Most of the houses have electric connections. Electricity powers all the tube wells in the fields and is used in various types of small businesses. Palampur has two primary schools and one high school. There is a primary health center run by the government and one private dispensary where the sick are treated. The description above shows that Palampur has fairly well developed system of roads, transport, electricity, irrigation, schools and health center. Compare these facilities with those in your nearby village. The story of Palampur, an imaginary village, will take us through the different types of production activities in the village. In villages across India, farming is the main production activity. The other production activities referred to as non-farm activities include small manufacturing, transport, shopkeeping, etc. We shall take a look at both these types of activities after learning a few general things about production. Organization of production. The aim of production is to produce the goods and services that we want. There are four requirements for production of goods and services. The first requirement is land and other natural resources such as water, forest, minerals. The second requirement is labor, that is, people who will do the work. Some production activities require highly educated workers to perform the necessary tasks. Other activities require workers who can do manual work. Each worker is providing the labor necessary for production. The third requirement is physical capital, that is, the variety of inputs required at every stage during production. What are the items that come under physical capital? A. Tools, machines, buildings. Tools and machines range from very simple tools such as a farmer's plow to sophisticated machines such as generators, turbines, computers, etc. Tools, machines, buildings can be used in production over many years and are called fixed capital. B. Raw materials and money in hand. Production requires a variety of raw materials, such as the yarn used by the weaver and the clay used by the potter. Also, some money is always required during production to make payments and buy other necessary items. Raw materials and money in hand are called working capital. Unlike tools, machines, and buildings, these are used up in production. There is a fourth requirement too. You will need knowledge and enterprise to be able to put together land, labor, and physical capital and produce an output either to use yourself or to sell in the market. This these days is called human capital. We shall learn more about human capital in the next coming chapter. In the picture, identify the land, labor, and fixed capital used in production. Picture 1.2, a factory with several laborers and machines. Every production is organized by combining land, labor, physical capital, and human capital, which are known as factors of production. As we read through the story of Palampur, we will learn more about the first three factors of production. For convenience, we will refer to the physical capital as the capital in this chapter. Farming in Palampur. First, land is fixed. Farming is the main production activity in Palampur. 75% of the people who are working are dependent on farming for their livelihood. They could be farmers or farm laborers. The well being of these people is closely related to production on the farms. But remember that there is a basic constraint in raising farm production. Land area under cultivation is practically fixed. Since 1960, in Palampur, there has been no expansion in land area under cultivation. By then, some of the wastelands in the village had been converted to cultivable land. There exists no further scope to increase farm production by bringing new land under cultivation. The standard unit of measuring land is hectare, though in the villages you may find land area being discussed in local units such as bigha, ghunta, etc. 1 hectare equals the area of a square with one side measuring 100 meters. Can you compare the area of 1 hectare field with the area of your school ground? 2. Is there a way one can grow more from the same land? In the kind of crops grown and facilities available, Palampur would resemble a village of the western part of the state of Uttar Pradesh. All land is cultivated in Palampur. No land is left idle. During the rainy season, that is Kharif, farmers grow jowar and bajra. These plants are used as cattle feed. It is followed by cultivation of potato between October and December. In the winter season, that is Rabi, fields are sown with wheat. From the wheat produced, farmers keep enough wheat for the family's consumption and sell the surplus wheat at the market at Raiganj. A part of the land area is also devoted to sugarcane, which is harvested once every year. Sugarcane, in its raw form or as jaggery, is sold to traders in Sahpur. The main reason why farmers are able to grow three different crops in a year in Palampur is due to the well developed system of irrigation. Electricity came early to Palampur. Its major impact was to transform the system of irrigation. The Persian hills were till then used by farmers to draw water from the wells and irrigate small fields. People saw that the electric run to wells could irrigate much larger areas of land more effectively. The first few two wells were installed by the government. Soon, however, farmers started setting up private two wells. As a result, by mid 1970s, the entire cultivated area of 200 hectares was irrigated. Not all villages in India have such high level of irrigation. Apart from the riverine plains, coastal regions in our country are well irrigated. In contrast, plateau regions such as the Deccan Plateau have low levels of irrigation. Of the total cultivated area in the country, a little less than 40% is irrigated even today. In the remaining areas, farming is largely dependent on the rainfall. To grow more than one crop on a piece of land during the year is known as multiple cropping. It is the most common way of increasing production on a given piece of land. All farmers in Palampur grow at least two main crops. Many are growing potato as the third crop in the past 15 to 20 years. You can see in the picture 1.3 different crops such as wheat, bajra, sugarcane, potato. Let's discuss. The following table 1.1 shows the land under cultivation in India in units of million hectares. Plot this on the graph provided. What does the graph show? Discuss in class. Table 1.1 Cultivated area over the years. Source Pocket Book of Agriculture Statistics 2020, Directorate of Economics and Statistics, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare. Is it important to increase the area under irrigation? Why? You have read about the crops grown in Palampur. Fill the following table based on information on the crops grown in your region. You have seen that one way of increasing production from the same land is by multiple cropping. The other way is to use modern farming method for higher yield. Yield is measured as a crop produced on a given piece of land during a single season. Till the mid 1960s, the seeds used in cultivation were traditional ones with relatively low yields. The traditional seeds needed less irrigation. Farmers used cow dung and other natural manure as fertilizers. All these were readily available with the farmers who did not have to buy them. The Green Revolution in the late 1960s introduced the Indian farmer to cultivation of wheat and rice using high yield varieties of seeds. Compared to the traditional seeds, the HYV seeds promised to produce much greater amounts of grain on a single plant. As a result, the same piece of land would now produce far larger quantities of food grains than was possible earlier. HYV seeds, however, needed plenty of water and also chemical fertilizers and pesticides to produce best results. Picture 1.4 Modern farming methods HYV seeds, chemical fertilizers. Higher yields were possible only from a combination of HYV seeds, irrigation, chemical fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Farmers of Punjab, Haryana, and western Uttar Pradesh were the first to try out the modern farming method in India. The farmers in these regions set up tube wells for irrigation, made use of HYV seeds, chemical fertilizers, and pesticides in farming. Some of them bought farm machinery like tractors, threshers, which made plowing and harvesting faster. They were rewarded with high yields of wheat. In Palampur, the yield of wheat grown from the traditional varieties was 1300 kg per hectare. With HYB seeds, the yield went up to 3200 kg per hectare. There was a large increase in the production of wheat. Farmers now had greater amounts of surplus wheat to sell in the markets. Let's discuss what is the difference between multiple cropping and modern farming method. The following table shows the production of wheat and pulses in India after the Green Revolution in units of million tons. Plot this on a graph. Was the Green Revolution equally successful for both the crops? Discuss what is the working capital required by the farmer using modern farming methods. Table 1.2 Production of pulses and wheat in million tons. Source Pocket Book of Agricultural Statistics 2020, Directorate of Economics and Statistics, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare. Modern farming methods require the farmer to start with more cash than before. Why? Suggested activity. During your field visit, talk to some farmers of your region. Find out what kind of farming methods, modern or traditional or mixed, do the farmers use. Write a note. Second, what are the sources of irrigation? Third, how much of the cultivated land is irrigated? Four, from where do farmers obtain the inputs that they require? 3. Will the land sustain? Land being a natural resource, it is necessary to be careful in its use. Scientific reports indicate that the modern farming methods have overused the natural resource base. In many areas, green revolution is associated with the loss of soil fertility due to increased use of chemical fertilizers. Also, continuous use of groundwater for tubewell irrigation has led to the depletion of the water table. Environmental resources like soil fertility and groundwater are built up over years. Once destroyed, it is very difficult to restore them. We must take care of the environment to ensure future development of agriculture. Chemical fertilizers provide minerals which dissolve in water and are immediately available to plants, but these may not be retained in the soil for long. They may escape from the soil and pollute the groundwater, rivers, and lakes. Chemical fertilizers can also kill bacteria and other microorganisms in the soil. This means sometime after their use, the soil will be less fertile than ever before. Source down to earth, New Delhi. The consumption of chemical fertilizers in Punjab is highest in the country. The continuous use of chemical fertilizers had led to degradation of soil health. Punjab farmers are now forced to use more and more chemical fertilizers and other inputs to achieve the same production level. This means cost of cultivation is rising very fast. Source is the Tribune, Chandigarh. How is land distributed between the farmers of Palampur? You must have realized how important land is for farming. Unfortunately, not all the people engaged in agriculture have sufficient land for cultivation. In Palampur, about one third of the 450 families are landless. That is, 150 families, most of them Dalits, have no land for cultivation. Of the remaining families who own land, 240 families cultivate small plots of land less than 2 hectares in size. Cultivation of such plots does not bring adequate income to farmer family. In 1960, Govind was a farmer with 2.25 hectares of largely unirrigated land. With the help of his three sons, Govind cultivated the land. Though they did not live very comfortably, the family managed to feed itself with a little bit of extra income from one buffalo that the family possessed. Some years after Govind's death, this land was divided among his three sons. Each one now has a plot of land that is only 0.75 hectare in size. Even with improved irrigation and modern farming method, Govind's sons are not able to make a living from their land. They have to look for additional work during part of the year. You can see the large number of small plots scattered around the village in picture. These are cultivated by small farmers. On the other hand, more than half the area of the village is covered by plots that are quite large in size. In Palampur, there are 60 families of the medium and large farmers who cultivate more than 2 hectares of land. A few of the large farmers have land extending over 10 hectares or more. Picture 1.6. Work on the fields. Wheat crop plowing by bullock, sowing, spraying of insecticides, cultivation by traditional method, cultivation by modern method, and cutting of crops. Let's discuss. In the picture 1.5, can you set the land cultivated by small farmers? Why do so many families of farmers cultivate such small plots of land? The distribution of farmers in India and the amount of land they cultivate is given in the following graph 1.1. Discuss in the classroom. Source Pocket Book of Agriculture, Statistics 2020 and State of Indian Agriculture 2020, Department of Agriculture, Cooperation and Farmers Welfare. Let's discuss. Would you agree that the distribution of cultivated land is unequal in Palampur? Do you find a similar situation for India? Explain. 5. Who will provide the labor? After land, labor is the next necessary factor for production. Farming requires a great deal of hard work. Small farmers, along with their families, cultivate their own land. Thus, they provide the labor required for farming themselves. Medium and large farmers hire farm laborers to work on their fields. Let's discuss. Identify the work being done on the field in the picture 1.6 above and arrange them in a proper sequence. Farm laborers come either from landless families or families cultivating small plots of land. Unlike farmers, farm laborers do not have a right over the land crops grown on the land. Instead, they are paid wages by the farmer for whom they work. The wages can be in cash or in kind. For example, crop. Sometimes laborers get meals also. Wages vary widely from region to region, from crop to crop, from one farm activity to another like sowing and harvesting. There is also a wide variation in the duration of employment. A farm laborer might be employed on a daily basis or for one particular farm activity like harvesting or for the whole year. Dala is a landless farm laborer who works on daily wages in Palampur. This means he must regularly look for work. The minimum wages for a farm laborer set by the government is 300 per day, March 2019 data. But Dala gets only 160 rupees. There is heavy competition for work among the farm laborers in Palampur, so people agree to work for lower wages. Dala complains about his situation to Ramkali, who is another farm laborer. Both Dala and Ramkali are among the poorest people in the village. Let's discuss. Why are farm laborers like Dala and Ramkali poor? Gosaipur and Majauli are two villages in North Bihar. Out of a total of 850 households in the two villages, there are more than 250 men who are employed in rural Punjab and Haryana, or in Delhi, Mumbai, Surat, Hyderabad, or Nagpur. Such migration is common in most villages across India. Why do people migrate? Can you describe, based on your imagination, the work that the migrants of Gosaipur and Majoli might do at the place of destination? 6. The capital needed in farming. You have already seen that the modern farming methods require a great deal of capital, so that the farmer now needs more money than before. First, most small farmers have to borrow money to arrange for capital. They borrow from large farmers or the village moneylenders or the traders who supply various inputs for cultivation. The rate of interest on such loan is very high. They are put to great distress to repay the loan. Savita is a small farmer. She plans to cultivate wheat on her 1 hectare of land. Besides its fertilizers and pesticides, she needs cash to buy water and repair her farm instruments. She estimates that the working capital itself would cost a minimum of 3000 rupees. She does not have the money, so she decides to borrow from Tejpal Singh, a large farmer. Tejpal Singh agrees to give Sakta the loan at an interest rate of 24% for 4 months, which is a very high interest rate. Savita also has to promise to work on his land as a farm laborer during the harvest season at rupees 100 per day. As you can tell, this wage is quite low. Savita knows that she will have to work very hard to complete harvesting on her own field and then work as a farm laborer for Tejpal Singh. The harvest time is very busy time. As a mother of three children, she has a lot of household responsibility. Savita agrees to these tough conditions as she knows getting a loan is difficult for a small farmer. Second, in contrast to the small farmers, the medium and large farmers have their own savings from farming. They are thus able to arrange for the capital needed. How do these farmers have their own savings? You will shall find the answer in the next section. 7. Sale of surplus farm products. Let us suppose that the farmers have produced wheat on their lands using the three factors of production. The wheat is harvested and production is complete. What do the farmers do with the wheat? They retain a part of the wheat for the family's consumption and sell the surplus wheat. Small farmers like Savita and Govind's sons, have little surplus wheat because their total production is small, and from this, a substantial share is kept for their own family needs. So, it is the medium and large farmers who supply wheat to the market. In the picture 1.1, you can see the bullock cart streaming into the market, each carrying loads of wheat. The traders at the market buy the wheat and sell it further to shopkeepers in the towns and cities. Tejpal Singh, the large farmer, has a surplus of 350 quintals of wheat from all his lands. He sells the surplus wheat at the Raiganj market and has good earnings. What does Tejpal Singh do with his earnings? Last year, Tejpal Singh had put most of the money in his bank account. Later, he used the savings for lending it to farmers like Sabita who were in need of a loan. He also used the saving to arrange for the working capital for farming in the next season. This year, Tejpal Singh plans to use his earnings to buy another tractor. Another tractor would increase his fixed capital. Like Tejpal Singh, other large and medium farmers sell the surplus farm products. A part of the earnings is saved and kept for buying capital for the next season. Thus, they are able to arrange for the capital for farming from their own savings. Some farmers might also use the savings to buy cattle, trucks, or to set up shops. As we shall see, these constitute the capital for non-farm activities. Non-farm activities in Palampur. We have learnt about farming as the main production activity in Palampur. We shall now take a look at some of the non-farm production activities. Only 25% of the people working in Palampur are engaged in the activities other than agriculture. 1. Dairy. The other common activity. Dairy is a common activity in many families of Palampur. People feed their buffalo on various kinds of grass and the jowar and bajra that grows during the rainy season. The milk is sold in Raiganj, the nearby large village. Two traders from Sahpur town have set up collection cum chilling centers at Raiganj from where the milk is transported to faraway towns and cities. An example of small scale manufacturing in Palampur. At present, less than 50 people are engaged in manufacturing in Palampur, unlike the manufacturing that takes place in the big factories in towns and cities. Manufacturing in Palampur involves very simple production methods and are done on a small scale. They are carried out mostly at home or in the fields with the help of family labor. Rarely are laborers hired. 3. The shopkeepers of Palampur. People involved in trade, that is, exchange of goods, are not many in Palampur. The traders of Palampur are shopkeepers who buy various goods from wholesale markets in the cities and sell them in the village. You will see small general stores in the village selling a wide range of items like rice, wheat, sugar, tea, oil, biscuits, soap, toothpaste, batteries, candles, notebooks, pen, pencil, even some cloth. A few of the families whose houses are close to the bus stand have used a part of the space to open small shops. They sell eatables. 4. Transport, a fast developing sector. There are variety of vehicles on the road connecting Palampur to Raiganj. Rickshawalas, tangawalas, jeep, tractor, truck drivers, and the people driving the traditional bullock cart and bogie are people in the transport services. They ferry people and goods from one place to another and in return get paid for it. The number of people involved in transport has grown over the last several years. Summary of the chapter. Farming is the main production activity in the village. Over the years, there have been many important changes in the way farming is practiced. These have allowed the farmers to produce more crops from the same amount of land. This is an important achievement since land is fixed and scarce. But in raising production, a great deal of pressure has been put on land and other natural resources. The new ways of farming need less land but much more of capital. The medium and large farmers are able to use their own savings from production to arrange for capital during the next season. On the other hand, the small farmers, who constitute about 80% of total farmers in India, find it difficult to obtain capital. Because of the small size of their plots, their production is not enough. The lack of surplus means that they are unable to obtain capital from their own savings and have to borrow. Besides the debt, many of the small farmers have to do additional work as farm laborers to feed themselves and their families. Labor being the most abundant factor of production, it would be ideal if the new ways of farming used much more labor. Unfortunately, such a thing has not happened. The use of labor on farm is limited. The labor looking for opportunities is thus migrating to neighboring villages, towns, and cities. Some labor has entered the non-farm sector in the village. At present, the non-farm sector in the village is not very large. Out of every 100 workers in the rural areas in India, only 24 are engaged in non-farm activities. Though there is a variety of non-farm activities in the village, we have only seen a few examples. The number of people employed in each is quite small. In the future, one would like to see more non-farm production activities in the village. Unlike farming, non-farm activities require little land. People with some amount of capital can set up non-farm activities. How does one obtain this capital? One can either use his own savings but more often has to take a loan. It is important that loan be available at low rate of interest so that even people without savings can start some non-farm activity. Another thing which is essential for expansion of non-farm activity is to have markets where goods and services produced can be sold. In Palampur, we saw the neighboring villages, towns, and cities provide the markets for milk, jaggery, wheat, etc. As more villages get connected to towns and cities through goods roads, transports, and telephone, it is possible that the opportunity for non-farm activities in the village would increase in the coming years. This is page number 16, chapter 2, People as Resource. Overview. The chapter People as Resource is an effort to explain population as an asset for the economy rather than a liability. Population becomes human capital when there is investment made in the form of education, training, and medical care. In fact, human capital is the stock of skill and productive knowledge embodied in them. People as a resource is a way of referring to a country's working people in terms of their existing productive skills and abilities. Looking at the population from this productive aspect emphasizes its ability to contribute to the creation of the gross national product, that is GNP. Like other resources, population also is a resource known as a human resource. This is the positive side of a large population that is often overlooked when we look only at the negative side, considering only the problems of providing the population with food, education, and access to health facilities. When the existing human resource is further developed by becoming more educated and healthy, we call it human capital formation that adds to the productive power of the country, just like physical capital formation. Investment in human capital through education, training, medical care yields a return just like investment in physical capital. This can be seen directly in the form of higher incomes earned because of higher productivity of the more educated or the better trained persons, as well as the higher productivity of healthier people. India's Green Revolution is a dramatic example of how the input of greater knowledge in the form of improved production technologies can rapidly increase the productivity of scarce land resources. India's IT revolution is a striking instance of how the importance of human capital has come to acquire a higher position than that of material, plant and machinery. Source Planning Commission of Government of India. Let's discuss. Looking at the photograph, can you explain how a doctor, teacher, engineer, and a tailor are an asset to the economy? Not only do the more educated and healthier people gain through higher incomes, society also gains in other indirect ways because the advantages of a more educated or a healthier population spreads to those also who themselves were not directly educated or given health care. In fact, human capital is in one way superior to other resources like land and physical capital. Human resource can make use of land and capital. Land and capital cannot become useful on its own. For many decades in India, a large population has been considered a liability rather than an asset. But a large population need not be a burden for the economy. It can be turned into a productive asset by investment in human capital. For example, by spending resources on education and health for all, training of industrial and agricultural workers in the use of modern technology, full scientific researches, and so on. The two following cases illustrate how people can try to become a more productive resource. Story of Sakal. There were two friends, Vilas and Sakal, living in the same village, Simapur. Sakal was a 12-year-old boy. His mother, Sila, looked after domestic chores. His father, Bhutta Chaudhary, worked in an agricultural field. Sakal helped his mother in domestic chores. He also looked after his younger brother Jitu and sister Situ. His uncle Syam had passed the matriculation examination but was sitting idle in the house as he had no job. Bhutta and Sila were eager to teach Sakal. They forced him to join the village school, which he soon joined. He started studying and completed his higher secondary examination. His father persuaded him to continue his studies. He raised a loan for Sakal to study a vocational course in computers. Sakal was meritorious and interested in studies from the beginning. With great vigor and enthusiasm, he completed his course. After some time, he got a job in a private firm. He even designed a new kind of software. This software helped him increase the sale of firm. His boss acknowledged his services and rewarded him with a promotion. The story of Vilas. Vilas was an 11-year-old boy residing in the same village as Sakal. Vilas' father Mahesh was a fisherman. His father passed away when he was only 2 years old. His mother Geeta sold fish to earn money to feed the family. She bought fish from the landowner's pond and sold it in the nearby mandi. She could earn only rupees 150 a day by selling fish. Vilas became a patient of arthritis. His mother could not afford to take him to the doctor. He could not go to the school either. He was not interested in studies. He helped his mother in cooking and also looked after his younger brother Mohan. After some time, his mother fell sick and there was no one to look after her. There was no one in the family to support them. Vilas too was forced to sell fish in the same village. He, like his mother, earned only a meager income. Let's discuss. Do you notice any difference between the two friends? What are those? Activity: visit a nearby village or a slum area and write down a case study of a boy or girl of your age facing the same kind as Vilas or Sakal. In the two cases, we saw Sakal went to school and Vilas did not go. Sakal was physically strong and healthy. There was no need for him to visit the doctor frequently. Vilas was a patient of arthritis. He lacked the means to visit the doctor. Sakal acquired a degree in computer programming. Sakal found a job in a private firm while Vilas continued with the same work as his mother. He earned meager income like his mother to support a family. In the case of Sakal, several years of education added to the quality of labor. This enhanced his total productivity. Total productivity adds to the growth of the economy. This in turn pays an individual through salary or in some other forms of his choice. In case of Vilas, there could not be any education or health care in the early part of his life. He spends his life selling fish like his mother. Henceforth, he draws the same salary of unskilled laborer as his mother. Investment in human resource via education and medical care can give high rates of return in future. This investment on people is the same as investment in land and capital. A child who, with investments made on her education and health, can yield a high return in the future in the form of higher earnings and greater contribution to the society. Educated parents are found to invest more heavily on the education of their child. This is because they have realized the importance of education for themselves. They are also conscious of proper nutrition and hygiene. They accordingly look after their children's needs for education at school and good health. A virtuous cycle is thus created in this case. In contrast, a vicious cycle may be created by disadvantaged parents who themselves uneducated and lacking in hygiene keep their children in similarly disadvantaged state. Countries like Japan have invested in human resource. They did not have any natural resource. These countries are developed countries, rich countries. They import the natural resource needed in their country. How did they become rich, developed? They have invested on people, especially in the field of education and health. These people have made efficient use of other resources like land and capital. Efficiency and the technology evolved by people have made these countries rich and developed. Economic activities by men and women like Vilas and Sakal, people have been engaged in various activities. We saw that Vilas sold fish and Sakal got a job in the firm. The various activities have been classified into three main sectors: primary sector, secondary sector, and tertiary sector. The primary sector includes agriculture, forestry, animal husbandry, fishing, poultry, farming, mining and quarrying. Manufacturing is included in the secondary sector. Trade, transport, communication, banking, education, health, tourism, services, insurance, etc. are included in the tertiary sector of the economy. The activities in these sectors result in the production of goods and services. These activities add value to the national income. These activities are called economic activities. Economic activities have two parts: market activities and non-market activities. Market activities involve remuneration to anyone who performs, that is, activity performed for pay or profit. These include production of goods and or services, including government service. Non-market activities or the production for self-consumption. These can be consumption and processing of primary product and on account production of fixed asset. Activity: visit a village or colony located near to your residential area and note down the various activities undertaken by the people of that village or colony. If this is not possible, ask your neighbor what is their profession. In which of the three sectors will you categorize their work? Say whether these activities are economic or non-economic activities. Vilas sells fish in the village market. Vilas cooks food for his family. Sakal works in the private farm. Sakal looks after his younger brother and sister. Due to historical and cultural reasons, there is a division of labor between men and women in the family. Women generally look after domestic chores and men work in the fields. Sakal's mother, Sheila, cooks food, cleans utensils, washes clothes, cleans the house, and looks after her children. Sakal's father, Butta, cultivates the field, sells the produce in the market, and earns money for the family. Sheila is not paid for the services delivered for upbringing of the family. Butta earns money which he spends on rearing his family. Women are not paid for their services delivered in the family. The household work done by women is not recognized in the national income. Geeta, mother of Vilas, earned an income by selling fish. Thus, women are paid for their work when they enter the labor market. Their earnings, like that of their male counterpart, is determined on the basis of education and skill. Education helps individual to make better use of the economic opportunities available before them. Education and skill are the major determinants of the earning of any individual in the market. A majority of women have meager education and low skill formation. Women are paid low compared to men. Most women work where job security is not there. Various activities relating to legal protection is meager. Employment in this sector is characterized by irregular and low income. In this sector, there is an absence of basic facilities like maternity leave, child care, and other social security systems. However, women with high education and skill formation are paid at par with men. Among the organized sector, teaching and medicine attract them the most. Some women have entered administrative and other services, including jobs that need high levels of scientific and technological competence. Ask your sister or your classmate what she would like to take up as a career. Quality of population. The quality of population depends upon the literacy rate, health of a person, indicated by life expectancy, and skill formation acquired by the people of the country. The quality of the population ultimately decides the growth rate of the country. Literate and healthy population are an asset. Education. Sakal's education in the initial years of his life bore him the fruits in the later years in terms of a good job and salary. We saw education was an important input for the growth of Sakal. It opened new horizons for him, provided new aspiration and developed values of life. Not only for Sakal, education contributes towards the growth of society, also it enhances the national income, cultural richness, and increases the efficiency of governance. There is a provision made for providing universal access, retention, and quality in elementary education with special emphasis on girls. There is also an establishment of pace setting of schools like Navodaya Vidyalaya in each district. Vocational streams have been developed to equip large number of high school students with occupations related to knowledge and skills. The plan outlay on education has increased from 151 crore in the first plan to rupees 99,300 crore in 2021. The expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP rose from 0.64% in 1951 to 3.1% in 2019-20 has remained stagnant around 3% from past few years. The budgetary estimate as stated in the budget documents of union state governments, Reserve Bank of India, the expenditure on education as a percentage of GDP has declined to 2.8% in 2021. The literacy rates have increased from 18% in 1951 to 85% in 2018. The literacy is not only a right, it is also needed if the citizens are to perform their duties and enjoy their rights properly. However, a vast difference is noticed across different sections of population. Literacy among males is nearly 16.1% higher than females, and it is about 14.2% higher in urban areas as compared to rural areas. As per 2011 census, literacy rates varied from 94% in Kerala to 62% in Bihar. The primary school system 1 to 5 has expanded to over 7 lakh 78,840 lakh in 2019 to 2020. Unfortunately, this huge expansion of school has been diluted by the poor quality of schooling and high dropout rates. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is a significant step towards providing elementary education to all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years by 2010. It is a time-bound initiative of the central government in partnership with the states, the local government, and the community for achieving the goal of universalization of elementary education. Along with its courses and back to school camps have been initiated to increase the enrollment in elementary education. Mid-day meal scheme has been implemented to encourage attendance and retention of children and improve their nutritional status. These policies could aid to the literate population of India. The gross enrollment ratio in higher education in the age group of 18 to 23 years is 27% in 2019 to 2020, which would be broadly in line with world average. The strategy focuses on increasing access, quality, adoption of state-specific curriculum modification, vocationalization, and networking on the use of information technology. There is also focus on distance education, convergence of formal, non-formal, distance and IT education institutions. Over the past 60 years, there has been a significant growth in the number of universities and institutions of higher learning in specialized areas. Let us read the table to see the increase in the number of college, university, enrollment of students, and recruitment of teachers from 1951 to 2019 to 2020. Let us discuss this table in the classroom and answer the following questions. Is the increase in the number of colleges adequate to admit the increasing number of students? Do you think we should have more number of universities? What is the increase noticed among the teachers in the year 2015 to 16? What is your idea about future colleges and university? Health for maximize profit. Do you think any firm would be induced to employ who might not work efficiently as healthy workers because of ill health? The health of a person helps him to realize his her potential and the ability to fight illness. She will not be able to maximize his her output to the overall growth of organization. Indeed, health is an indispensable basis for realizing one's well-being. Henceforth, improvement in the health status of the population has been the priority of the country. Our national policy, too, aims at improving the accessibility of health care, family welfare, and nutritional service, with a special focus on the underprivileged segment of the population. Over the last 5 decades, India has built a vast health infrastructure and has also developed the manpower required at primary, secondary, and tertiary sector in government as well as in private sector. These measures, which have been adopted, have increased the life expectancy to over 69.4 years in 2016. Infant mortality rate, that is IMR, has come down from 147 in 1951 to 36 in 2020. Crude birth rate had dropped to 2018 and death rates to 6.2 in 2018 within the same duration of time. Increase in life expectancy and improvement in child care are useful in assessing the future progress of the country. Increasing longevity of life is an indicator of good quality of life marked by self-confidence. Reduction in infant mortality involves the protection of children from the infection, ensuring the nutrition of both the mother and child care. Source: National Health Profile 2021 mosfw.gov.in. Let us discuss study table 2.2 and answer the following questions. What is the percentage increase in dispensaries from 1951 to 2020? What is the percentage increase in doctors and nursing personnel from 1951 to 2020? Do you think the increase in the number of doctors and nurses is adequate for India? If not, why? What other facilities would you like to provide in a hospital? Discuss about the hospital you have visited. Can you draw a graph using this table? There are many places in India which don't have even these basic facilities. There are only 542 medical colleges in country and 313 dental colleges. Just four states like Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu have the maximum number of medical colleges. On employment, Sakal's mother Sheila looked after the domestic chores, children, and helped her husband Butta in the field. Sakal's brother Jitu and sister Situ spend their time playing and roaming. Can you call Sila or Jitu or Situ unemployed? If not, why? Unemployment is just Unemployment is said to exist when people who are willing to work at the going wages cannot find jobs. Sheila is not interested in working outside her domestic domain. Jitu and Situ are too small to counted in the workforce population. Neither Jitu, Situ or Sheila can be counted as unemployed. The workforce population includes people from 15 years to 59 years. Sakal's brother and sister do not fall within this age group, so they cannot be called unemployed. Sakal's mother, Sila, works for the family. She is not willing to work outside her domestic domain for payment. She too cannot be called unemployed. Sakal's grandparents, although not mentioned in the story, cannot be called unemployed. In case of India, we have unemployment in rural and urban areas. However, the nature of unemployment differs in rural and urban areas. In case of rural areas, there is seasonal and disguised unemployment. Urban areas have mostly unemployment. Seasonal unemployment happens when people are not able to find jobs during some months of the year. People dependent upon agriculture usually face such kind of problem. There are certain busy seasons when sowing, harvesting, weeding and threshing is done. Certain months do not provide much work to the people dependent on the agriculture. In case of disguised unemployment, people appear to be employed. They have agricultural plot where they find work. This usually happens among family members engaged in agricultural activity. The work requires the service of 5 people but engages 8 people. 3 people are extra. These 3 people also work in the same plot as the others. The contribution made by 3 extra people does not add to the contribution made by 5 people. If 3 people are removed, the productivity of the field will not decline. The field requires the service of 5 people and 3 extra people are disguised unemployed. In case of urban areas, educated unemployment has become a common phenomenon. Many youth with matriculation, graduation, and post graduation degrees are not able to find job. A study showed that unemployment of graduate and postgraduate has increased faster than among matriculates. A paradoxical manpower situation is witnessed as surplus of manpower in certain categories coexist with shortage of manpower in others. There is unemployment among technically qualified persons on one hand, while there is dearth of technical skills required for economic growth. Unemployment leads to wastage of manpower resource. People who are an asset for the economy turn into a liability. There is a feeling of hopelessness and despair among the youth. People do not have enough money to support their family. Inability of educated people who are willing to work to find gainful employment implies a great social waste. Unemployment tends to increase economic overload. The dependence of the unemployed on the working population increases. The quality of life of an individual as well as society is adversely affected. When a family has to live on a bare subsistence level, there is a general decline in its health status and rising withdrawal from the school system. Hence, unemployment has detrimental impact on the overall growth of an economy. Increase in unemployment is an indicator of a depressed economy. It also wastes the resource which could have been gainfully employed. If people cannot be used as a resource, they naturally appear as a liability to the economy. In case of India, statistically, the unemployment rate is low. A large number of people represented with low income and productivity are counted employed. They appear to work throughout the year, but in terms of their potential and income, it is not adequate for them. The work they are pursuing seems forced upon them. They may therefore want other work of their choice. Poor people cannot afford to sit idle. They tend to engage in any activity irrespective of its earning potential. Their earning keeps them on a bare subsistence level. Moreover, the employment structure is characterized by self-employment in the primary sector. The whole family contributes in the field, even though not everybody is really needed. So there is disguised unemployment in the agriculture sector, but the entire family shares what has been produced. This concept of sharing of work in the field and the produce raised reduces the hardship of unemployment in the rural sector. But this does not reduce the poverty of the family. Gradually, surplus labor from every household tends to migrate from the village in search of jobs. Let us discuss about the unemployment scenario in the three sectors mentioned earlier. Agriculture is the most labor absorbing sector of the economy. In recent years, there has been a decline in the dependence of population on agriculture, partly because of disguised unemployment discussed earlier. Some of the surplus labor in agriculture has moved to either the secondary or the tertiary sector. In the secondary sector, small scale manufacturing is the most labor absorbing. In case of the tertiary sector, various new services are now appearing like biotechnology, information technology, and so on. Let us read a story to know how people could become an asset for the economy of a village. The story of a village. There was a village inhabited by several families. Each family produced enough to feed its members. Each family met its needs by the members making their own clothes and teaching their own children. One of the families decided to send one of its sons to an agriculture college. The boy got his admission in the nearby College of Agriculture. After some time, he became qualified in agriculture engineering and came back to the village. He proved to be so creative that he could design an improved type of plough which increased the yield of wheat. Thus, a new job of agro engineer was created and filled in the village. The family in the village sold the surplus in a nearby neighboring village. They earned good profit, which they shared among themselves. Inspired by this success, all the families after some time held a meeting in the village. They all wanted to have a better future for their children too. They requested the panchayat to open a school in the village. They assured the panchayat that they would all send their children to school. The panchayat, with the help of government, opened a school. A teacher was recruited from a nearby town. All the children of this village started going to school. After some time, one of the families gave training to his daughter in tailoring. She started stitching clothes for all the families of the village, for everyone now wanted to buy and wear well tailored clothes. Thus, another new job, that of a tailor, was created. This had another positive effect. The time of the farmers in going for buying clothes was saved. As the farmers spent more time in the field, the yield of the farmers went up. This was the beginning of the prosperity. The farmers had more than what they could consume. Now they could sell what they produced to others who came to their village markets. Over time, this village, which formerly had no job opportunities in the beginning, had many like teacher, tailor, agro-engineer, and many more. This was the story of a simple village where the rising level of human capital enabled it to evolve into a place rich with complex and modern economic activities. Summary: you have seen how inputs like education and health helped in making people an asset for the economy. The chapter also discusses about the economic activities undertaken in the three sectors of the economy. We also study about the problems associated with unemployment. Finally, the chapter ends with the story of a village which formerly had no job but later had plenty. This is page number 29, chapter 3, Poverty as a Challenge. Overview: this chapter deals with one of the most difficult challenges faced by independent India, that is, poverty. After discussing this multi-dimensional problem through examples, the chapter discusses the way poverty is seen in social sciences, poverty trends in India and the world are illustrated through the concept of the poverty line, causes of poverty, as well as anti-poverty measures taken by the government are also discussed. The chapter ends with broadening the official concept of poverty into human poverty. Introduction: in our daily life, we come across many people whom we think are poor. They could be landless laborers in villages or people living in overcrowded jhogis in cities. They could be daily wage workers at construction sites or child workers in dhabas. They could also be beggars with children in tatters. We see poverty all around us. In fact, every fifth person in India is poor. This means roughly 270 million people in India live in poverty as per 2011 census. This also means that India has the largest single concentration of the poor in the world. This illustrates the seriousness of the challenge. Two typical cases of poverty. Urban case: 33-year-old Ram Saran works as a daily wage laborer in a wheat flour mill near Ranchi in Jharkhand. He manages to earn around rupees 1500 a month when he finds employment, which is not often. The money is not enough to sustain his family of six, that includes his wife and four children, aged between 12 years to 6 months. He has to send money home to his old parents who live in a village near Ramgarh. His father, a landless laborer, depends on Ram Saran and his brother who lives in Hazaribagh for sustenance. Ram Saran lives in a one-room rented house in a crowded basti in the outskirts of the city. It's a temporary shack built of bricks and clay tiles. His wife Santa Devi works as a part-time maid in a few houses and manages to earn another rupees 800. They manage a meager meal of dal and rice twice a day, but there is never enough for all of them. His elder son works as a helper in a tea shop to supplement the family income and earns another rupees 300 while his 10-year-old daughter takes care of the young siblings. None of the children go to school. They have only two pairs of hand-me-down clothes each. New ones are bought only when the old clothes become unwearable. Shoes are a luxury. The younger kids are undernourished. They have no access to health care when they fall ill. Rural case. Lakhan Singh belongs to a small village near Meerut in Uttar Pradesh. His family does not own any land, so they do odd jobs for the big farmers. Work is erratic and so is income. At times they get paid rupees 50 for a hard day's work, but often it's in kind like a few kilograms of wheat or dal or even vegetables for toiling in the farm through the day. The family of eight cannot always manage two square meals a day. Lakha lives in a kacha hut on the outskirts of the village. The women of the family spend the day chopping fodder and collecting firewood in the fields. His father, a TB patient, passed away 2 years ago due to the lack of medication. His mother now suffers from the same disease and life is slowly ebbing away. Although the village has a primary school, Lakha never went there. He had to start earning when he was 10 years old. New class happen once in a few years. Even soap and oil are a luxury for the family. Study the above cases of poverty and discuss the following issues related to poverty: landlessness, unemployment, size of families, illiteracy, poor health, malnutrition, child labor, helplessness. These two typical cases illustrate many dimensions of poverty. They show that poverty means hunger, lack of shelter. It is a situation in which parents are not able to send their children to school, or a situation where sick people cannot afford treatment. Poverty also means lack of clean water and sanitation facilities. It also means lack of a regular job at a minimum decent level. Above all, it means living with a sense of helplessness. Poor people are in a situation in which they are ill treated at almost every place: in farms, factories, government offices, hospitals, railway stations. Obviously, nobody would like to live in a poverty. One of the biggest challenges of the independent India has been to bring millions of its people out of abject poverty. Mahatma Gandhi always insisted that India would be truly independent only when the poorest of its people become free of human suffering. Poverty, as seen by social scientists. Since poverty has many facets, social scientists look at it through a variety of indicators. Usually, the indicators used relate to the levels of income and consumption, but now poverty is looked through other social indicators like illiteracy level, lack of general resistance due to malnutrition, lack of access to health care, lack of job opportunities, lack of access to safe drinking water, sanitation, etc. Analysis of poverty based on social exclusion and vulnerability is now becoming very common. See box. Social exclusion. According to this concept, Poverty must be seen in terms of the poor having to live only in a poor surrounding with other people, excluded from enjoying social equality of better off people in better surroundings. Social exclusion can be both a cause as well as a consequence of poverty in the usual sense. Broadly, it is a process through which individuals or groups are excluded from facilities, benefits, and opportunities that others, their betters, enjoy. A typical example is the working of the caste system in India, in which people belonging to certain castes are excluded from equal opportunities. Social exclusion thus may lead to, but can cause more damage than having a very low income. Vulnerability. Vulnerability to poverty is a measure which describes the greater probability of certain communities, say members of a backward caste, or individuals such as a widow or a physically handicapped person, of becoming or remaining poor in the coming years. Vulnerability is determined by the options available to different communities for finding an alternative living in terms of assets, education, health, and job opportunities. Further, it is analyzed on the basis of the greater risks these groups face at the time of natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunami, terrorism, etc. Additional analysis is made of their social and economic ability to handle these risks. In fact, vulnerability describes the greater probability of being more adversely affected than other people when bad time comes for everybody, whether a flood or an earthquake, simply a fall in the availability of jobs. Poverty line. At the center of the discussion on poverty is usually the concept of the poverty line. A common method used to measure poverty is based on the income or consumption levels. A person is considered poor if his or her income or consumption level falls below a given minimum level necessary to fulfill the basic needs. What is necessary to satisfy the basic needs is different at different times and in different countries. Therefore, poverty line may vary with time and place. Each country uses an imaginary line that is considered appropriate for its existing level of development and its accepted minimum social norms. For example, a person not having a car in the US may be considered poor. In India, owning of a car is still considered a luxury, while determining the poverty line in India, a minimum level of food requirement, clothing, footwear, fuel and light, educational and medical requirement, etc. are determined for subsistence. These physical quantities are multiplied by their prices in rupees. The present formula for food requirement while estimating the poverty line is based on the desired calorie requirement. Food items such as cereals, pulses, vegetables, milk, oil, sugar, etc. together provide these needed calories. The calorie needs vary depending on age, sex, and the type of work that a person does. The accepted average calorie requirement in India is 2400 calories per person per day in rural areas and the 2100 calories per person per day in urban areas. Since people living in rural areas engage themselves in more physical work, calorie requirements in rural areas are considered to be higher than in urban areas. The monetary expenditure per capita needed for buying these calories requirement in terms of food grains, etc., is revised periodically, taking into consideration the rise in prices. On the basis of these calculations, for the year 2011-12, the poverty line for a person was fixed at rupees 816 per month for rural areas and rupees 1000 for urban areas. Despite less calorie requirement, the higher amount for urban areas has been fixed because of high prices of many essential products in urban centers. In this way, in the year 2011-12, a family of 5 members living in rural areas and earning less than about rupees 4080 rupees per month will be below the poverty line. A similar family in the urban areas would need a minimum of 5000 per month to meet their basic requirements. The poverty line is estimated periodically, normally every 5 years, by conducting sample surveys. These surveys are carried out by the National Sample Survey Organization NSSO. However, for making comparisons between developing countries, many international organizations like the World Bank use a uniform standard for the poverty line. Minimum availability of the equivalent of $1.9 per person per day, 2011 PPP. Let's discuss the following. Why do different countries use different poverty lines? What do you think would be the minimum necessary level in your locality? Poverty estimates. It is clear from table 3.1 that there is a substantial decline in poverty ratio in India from about 45% in 1993-94 to 37.2% in 2004-5. The proportion of people below poverty line further came down to about 22% in 2011-12. If the trend continues, people below poverty line may come down to less than 20% in the next few years. Although the percentage of people living under poverty line declined in the earlier two decades, that is 1973 to 1993, the number of poor declined from 407 million in 2004-5 to 270 million in 2011-12, with an average annual decline of 2.2 percentage points during 2004-5 to 2011-12. Let's discuss study table 3.1 and answer the following questions. Even if poverty ratio declined between 1993-94 and 2004-5, why did the number of poor remain at about 407 million? Are the dynamics of poverty reduction the same in rural and urban India? Vulnerable groups. The proportion of people below poverty line is also not same for all social groups and economic categories in India. Social groups which are most vulnerable to poverty are the scheduled castes and scheduled tribe households. Similarly, among the economic groups, the most vulnerable group are the rural agricultural labor households and the urban casual labor households. Graph 3.1 shows the percentage of poor people in all these groups. Although the average for people below poverty line for all groups in India is 22.43 out of 100 people belonging to scheduled tribes are not able to meet their basic needs. Similarly, 34% of casual workers in urban areas are below poverty line. About 34% of casual labor farm in rural areas and 29% of scheduled caste are also poor. The double disadvantage of being a landless casual wage labor household in the socially disadvantaged social groups of the scheduled caste or the scheduled tribe population highlights the seriousness of the problem. Some recent studies have shown that, except for the scheduled tribe households, all the other three groups, that is, scheduled caste, rural agricultural laborers, and the urban casual labor households, have seen a decline in poverty in the 1990s. Apart from these social groups, there is also inequality of incomes within a family. In poor families, all suffer, but some suffer more than others. In some cases, women, elderly people, and female infants are denied equal access to resources available to the family. Story of Shiv Raman. Shiv Raman lives in a small village near Karur town in Tamil Nadu. Karur is famous for its handloom and powerloom fabrics. There are 100 families in the village. Sivaraman, an Ariyuntha Thiur cobbler by caste, now works as an agricultural laborer for rupees 160 per day. But that's only for 5 to 6 months in a year. At other times, he does odd jobs in the town. His wife, Sasikala, too, works with him, but she can rarely find work these days, and even if she does, she is paid rupees 100 per day for the same work that Shiv Raman does. There are 8 members in the family. Shiv Raman's 65-year-old widowed mother is ill and needs to be helped with her daily chores. He has a 25-year-old unmarried sister and 4 children aged between 1 year to 16 years. 3 of them are girls. The youngest is a son. None of the girls go to school. Buying books and other things for school going girls is a luxury he cannot afford. Also, he has to get them married at some point of time, so he does not want to spend on their education now. His mother has lost interest in life and is just waiting to die someday. His sister and the elder daughter take care of the household. Suraman plans to send his son to school when he comes of age. His unmarried sister does not get along with his wife. Sasikala finds her a burden, but Sivaraman cannot find a suitable groom due to lack of money. Although the family has difficulty in arranging 2 meals a day, Sivaraman manages to buy milk once in a while, but only for his son. Let's discuss. Observe some of the poor families around you and try to find the following. Which social and economic group do they belong? Who are the earning members of in the family? What is the condition of the old people in the family? Or all the children, boys and girls in a family attending schools? Interstate disparities. Poverty in India also has another aspect or dimension. The proportion of poor people is not the same in every state. Although state level poverty has witnessed a secular decline, from the levels of early 70s. The success rate of reducing poverty varies from state to state. Recent estimates show while the all India head count ratio was 21% in 2011-12, states like Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Odisha above all India poverty level. As the graph 3.1 shows, Bihar and Odisha continue to be the two poorest states with poverty ratio 33.7 and 32.6% respectively. Along with rural poverty, urban poverty is also high in Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. In comparison, there has been a significant decline in poverty in Kerala, Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Gujarat, and West Bengal. States like Punjab and Haryana have traditionally succeeded in reducing poverty with help of high agricultural growth rates. Kerala has focused more on human resource development. In West Bengal, land reform measures have helped in reducing poverty. In Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, public distribution of food grains could have been responsible for the improvement. Global poverty scenario. The proportion of people in different countries living in extreme economic poverty, defined by the World Bank as living on less than $1.9 per day, has fallen from 36% in 1990 to 10% in 2015. Although there has been a substantial reduction in global poverty, it is marked with great regional differences. Poverty declined substantially in China and Southeast Asian countries as a result of rapid economic growth and massive investment in human resource development. Number of poor in China has come down from 88.3% in 1981 to 14.7% in 2008 to 0.6% in 2019. In the countries of South Asia like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, the decline has also been rapid 34% in 2005 to 15.2% in 2040. With decline in the percentage of the poor, the number of poor has also declined significantly from 510.4 million in 2005 to 274.5 million in 2013. Because of the different poverty line definition, poverty in India is also shown higher than the national estimates. In sub-Saharan Africa, poverty in fact declined from 51% in 2005 to 40.2% in 2008. See graph 3.3. In Latin America, the ratio of poverty has also declined from 10% in 2005 to 4% in 2018. See graph 3.3. Poverty has also resurfaced in some of the former socialist countries like Russia, where officially it was non-existent earlier. Table 3.2 shows the proportion of people living under poverty in different countries as defined by the International Poverty Line. That means population below $1.9. The new Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations proposes ending poverty of all types by 2030. Let's discuss. Study the graph 3.4 and do the following. Identify the areas of the world where poverty ratios have declined. Identify the area of the globe which has the largest concentration of the poor. Poverty head count ratio comparison among some selected countries: Nigeria, Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, China, Brazil, Indonesia, Sri Lanka. Source Poverty and Equity Database, World Bank data. Causes of poverty. There were a number of causes for the widespread poverty in India. One historical reason is the low level of economic development under the British colonial administration. The policies of the colonial government ruined traditional handicrafts and discouraged development of industries like textiles. The low rate of growth persisted until the 1980s, resulted in the less job opportunities and low growth rate of incomes. This was accompanied by a high growth rate of population. The two combined to make the growth rate of per capita income very low. The failure at both the fronts, promotion of economic growth and population control, perpetuated the cycle of poverty. With the spread of irrigation and the Green Revolution, many job opportunities were created in the agriculture sector, but the effects were limited to some parts of India. The industries, both in the public and the private sector, did provide some jobs, but these were not enough to absorb all the job seekers. Unable to find proper jobs in the cities, many people started working as rickshaw pullers, vendors, construction workers, domestic servants, etc. With irregular small incomes, these people could not afford expensive housing. They started living in slums on the outskirts of the city, and the problems of poverty, largely a rural phenomenon, also became the feature of the urban sector. Another feature of high poverty rates has been the huge
income.
inequality. One of the major reasons for this is the unequal distribution of land and other resources. Despite many policies, we have not been able to tackle the issue in a meaningful manner. Major policy initiatives like land reforms, which aimed at redistribution of assets in rural areas, have not been implemented properly and effectively by most of the state governments. Since lack of land resources has been one of the major causes of poverty in India, proper implementation of policy could have improved the life of millions of rural poor. Many other socio-cultural and economic factors also are responsible for poverty. In order to fulfill social obligations and observe religious ceremonies, people in India, including the very poor, spend a lot of money. Small farmers need money to buy agricultural inputs like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, etc. Since poor people hardly have any savings, they borrow. Unable to repay because of poverty, they become victims of indebtedness. So, the high level of indebtedness is both the cause and effect of poverty. Anti-poverty measures. Removal of poverty has been one of the major objectives of Indian development strategy. The current anti-poverty strategies of the government is based broadly on two planks. First, the promotion of economic growth. Second, targeted anti-poverty programs. Over a period of 30 years, lasting up to the early 80s, there were little per capita income growth and not much reduction in poverty. Official poverty estimates, which were about 45% in the early 1950s, remained the same even in the early 80s. Since the 80s, India's economic growth has been one of the fastest in the world. The growth rate jumped from the average of about 3.5% a year in the 1970s to about 6% during the 1980s and 1990s. The higher growth rates have helped significantly in the reduction of poverty. Therefore, it is becoming clear that there is a strong link between economic growth and poverty reduction. Economic growth widens opportunities and provides the resources needed to invest in human development. This also encourages people to send their children, including the girl child, to schools in the hope of getting better economic returns from investing in education. However, the poor may not be able to take direct advantage from the opportunities created by the economic. Moreover, growth in the agriculture sector is much below expectations. This has a direct bearing on poverty, as a large number of poor people live in villages and are dependent on agriculture. In these circumstances, there is a clear need for targeted anti-poverty programs. Although there are so many schemes which are formulated to affect poverty directly or indirectly, some of them are worth mentioning. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005, that is Manrega, aims to provide 100 days of wage employment to every household to ensure livelihood security in rural areas. It also aimed at sustainable development to address the cause of drought, deforestation, and soil erosion. One third of the proposed jobs have been reserved for women. The scheme provided employment to 220 crores persons, days of employment to 4.78 crore households. The share of SC/ST women person days in the scheme are 23%, 17%, and 53% respectively. The average has increased from 65 in 2006-7 to 132 in 2013-14. Recently, in March 2018, the wage rate for unskilled manual workers has been revised. The state-wise, the range of wage rate for different states and union territories lies in between 281 rupees per day to 168 rupees per day. Prime Minister Rozgar Yojana (PMRY) is another scheme which was started in 1993. The aim of the program is to create self-employment opportunities for educated unemployed youth in rural areas and small towns. They are helped in setting up small business and industries. Rural Employment Generation Program (REGP) was launched in 1995. The aim of the program is to create self-employment opportunities in rural areas and small towns. A target for creating 25 lakh new jobs has been set for the program under the 10th five-year plan. Swर्ण Jayanti Gram Swarozgar Yojana (SGSY) was launched in 1999. The program aims at bringing the assisted poor families above the poverty line by organizing them into self-help groups (SHG) through a mix of bank credit and government subsidy. Under the Pradhan Mantri Gramoday Yojana (PMGY) launched in 2000, additional central assistance is given to states for basic services such as primary health, primary education, rural shelter, rural drinking water, and rural electrification. Another important scheme is Antyodaya Anna Yojana (AAY), about which you will be reading more in the next chapter. The result of these programs have been mixed. One of the major reasons for less effectiveness is the lack of proper implementation and right targeting. Moreover, there has been a lot of overlapping of schemes. Despite good intentions, the benefits of these schemes are not fully reached to the deserving. Therefore, the major emphasis in recent years is on proper monitoring of all the poverty alleviation programs. The challenges ahead. The poverty has certainly declined in India, but despite the progress, poverty reduction remains India's most compelling challenge. Wide disparities in poverty are visible between rural and urban areas and among different states. Certain social economic groups are more vulnerable to poverty. Poverty reduction is expected to make better progress in the next 10 to 15 years. This would be possible mainly due to higher economic growth, increasing stress on universal free elementary education, declining population growth, increasing empowerment of the women and the economically weaker sections of society. The official definition of poverty, however, captures only a limited part of what poverty really means to people. It is about a minimum subsistence level of living rather than a reasonable level of living. Many scholars advocate that we must broaden the concept into human poverty. A large number of people may have been able to feed themselves, but do they have education or shelter or health care or job security or self confidence? Are they free from caste and gender discrimination? Is the practice of child labor still common worldwide? Experience shows that with development, the definition of what constitutes poverty also changes. Eradication of poverty is always a moving target. Hopefully, we will be able to provide the minimum necessary in terms of only income to all people by the end of the next decade. But the target will move on for many of the bigger challenges that still remain, providing healthcare, education, and job security for all, and achieving gender equality and the dignity for the poor. These will be even bigger tasks. Summary. You have seen in this chapter that poverty has many dimensions. Normally, this is measured through the concept of poverty line. Through this concept, we analyzed main global and national trends in poverty. But in recent years, the analysis of poverty is becoming rich through a variety of new concepts like social exclusion. Similarly, the challenge is becoming bigger as scholars are broadening the concept into human poverty. Exercises. First, describe how the poverty line is estimated in India. Second, do you think that present methodology of poverty estimation is appropriate? Third, describe poverty trends in India since 1973. Fourth, discuss the major reasons for poverty in India. 5. Identify the social and economic groups which are most vulnerable to poverty in India. 6. Give an account of interstate disparities of poverty in India. 7. Describe global poverty trends. 8th. Describe current government strategy of poverty alleviation. 9th. Answer the following questions briefly. First, what do you understand by human poverty? Who are the poorest of the poor? What are the main features of the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act 2005? This is page number 42, chapter 4, Food Security in India. Overview. Food security means availability, accessibility, and affordability of food to all people at all times. The poor households are more vulnerable to food insecurity whenever there is a problem of production or distribution of food crops. Food security depends on the public distribution system, that is PDS, and government vigilance and action at times when this security is threatened. What is food security? Food is as essential for living as air is for breathing. But food security means something more than getting two square food meals. Security has following dimensions. Availability of food means food production within the country, food imports and the previous year's stock stored in government granaries. B. Accessibility means food is within reach of every person. C. Affordability means that an individual has enough money to buy sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet one's dietary needs. Thus, food security is ensured in a country only if number one, enough food is available for all the persons. Two, all persons have the capacity to buy food of acceptable quality. And number three, there is no barrier on access to food. Quiet food security, the poorest section of the society might be food insecure most of the times, while persons above the poverty line might also be food insecure when the country faces a national disaster calamity like earthquake, drought, flood, tsunami, widespread failure of crops causing famine, etc. In the 1970s, food security was understood as the availability at all times of adequate supply of basic foodstuffs as per United Nations 1975. Amartya Sen added a new dimension to food security and emphasized the access to food through what he called entitlements, a combination of what one can produce, exchange in the market, along with state or other socially provided supplies. Accordingly, there has been a substantial shift in the understanding of food security. The 1995 World Food Summit declared food security at the individual, household, regional, national, and global levels exist when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. AO 1996. The declaration further recognizes that poverty eradication is essential to improve access to food. How is food security affected during a calamity? Due to a natural calamity, say drought, total production of food grains decreases. It creates a shortage of food in the affected areas. Due to shortage of food, the prices goes up. At the high prices, some people cannot afford to buy food. If such calamity happens in a very widespread area or is stretched over a longer time period, it may cause a situation of starvation. A massive starvation might take a turn of famine. Famine is characterized by widespread deaths due to starvation and epidemics caused by forced use of contaminated water or decaying food and loss of body resistance due to weakening from starvation. Devastating famine that occurred in India was the famine of Bengal in 1943. This famine killed 30 lakh people in the province of Bengal. Do you know who were affected the most by the famine? The agricultural laborers, fishermen, transport workers, and other casual laborers were affected the most by dramatically increasing price of rice. They were the ones who died in this famine. Let's discuss. Some people say that Bengal famine happened because there was a shortage of rice. Study the table and find out whether you agree with the statement. Which year shows a drastic decline in food availability? Suggested activity. Or what do you see in picture 4.1? B. Which age group is seen in the first picture? C. Can you say that the family shown in the picture 4.2 is a poor family? Why? D. Can you imagine the source of livelihood of the people shown in two pictures before the occurrence of famine in the context of a village? E. Find out what type of help is given to the victims of a natural calamity at a relief camp. F. Have you ever helped such victims in the form of money, food, clothes, medicines, etc. Project work. Gather more information about famines in India. Nothing like Bengal famine has happened in India again. It is, however, disturbing to note that even today famine-like conditions exist in many parts of the country, leading to starvation, deaths at times. Natural calamities and pandemics may also lead to food shortage. For example, COVID-19 pandemic had an adverse impact upon the food security. Restriction on movement of people and goods and services impacted economic activity. Therefore, food security is needed in a country to ensure food at all times, including calamities and pandemics. Who are food insecure. Although a large section of people suffer from food and nutrition insecurity in India, the worst affected groups are landless people with little or no land to depend upon, traditional artisans, providers of traditional services, petty self-employed workers, and destitutes, including beggars. In the urban areas, the food insecure families are those whose working members are generally employed in ill-paid occupations and casual labor market. These workers are largely engaged in seasonal activities and are paid very low wages that just ensure bare survival. Story of Ramu. Ramu works as a casual laborer in agriculture in Raipur village. His eldest son Somu, who is 10 years old, also works as a pali to look after the cattle of the Sarpanch of the village, Satpal Singh. Somu is employed for the whole year by the Sarpanch and is paid a sum of rupees 1000 for this work. Ramu has three more sons and two daughters, but they are too young to work on the field. His wife Sunahari is also part-time working as house cleaner for the livestock, removing and managing cow dung. She gets half-liter milk and some cooked food along with vegetables for her daily work. Besides, she also works in the field along with her husband in the busy season and supplements his earnings. Agriculture, being a seasonal activity, employs Ramu only during the times of sowing, transplanting, and harvesting. He remains unemployed for about 4 months during the period of plant consolidation and maturing in a year. He looks for work in other activities. Sometimes he gets employment in brick laying or in construction activities in the village. With all his efforts, Ramu is able to earn enough either in cash or kind for him to buy essentials for 2 square meals for his family. However, during the days when he is unable to get some work, he and his family really face difficulties, and sometimes his small kids have to sleep without food. Milk and vegetables are not a regular part of meals in the family. Ramu is food insecure during 4 months when he remains unemployed because of the seasonal nature of agriculture. Let's discuss, why is agriculture a seasonal activity? Why is Ramu unemployed for about 4 months in a year? What does Ramu do when he is unemployed? Who are supplementing income in Ramu's family? Why does Ramu face difficulty when he is unable to have work? When is Ramu food insecure? Story of Ahmad. Ahmad is a rickshaw puller in Bangalore. He has shifted from Jhumri Talaiya along with his 3 brothers, 2 sisters, and old parents. He stays in a jhugi. The survival of all members of his family depends on his daily earnings from pulling rickshaw. However, he does not have a secured employment and his earnings fluctuate every day. During some days, he gets enough earnings for him to save some amount after buying all his day to day necessities. On other days, he barely earns enough to buy his daily necessities. However, fortunately, Ahmad has a yellow card, which is PDS card for below poverty line people. With this card, Ahmad gets sufficient quantity of wheat, rice, sugar and kerosene oil for his daily use. He gets these essentials at half of the market price. He purchases his monthly stock during a particular day when the ration shop is opened for below poverty people. In this way, Ahmad is able to eke out his survival with less than sufficient earnings for his big family where he is only earning member. Let's discuss. Does Ahmad have a regular income from rickshaw pulling? How does the yellow card help Ahmad and his family even with small earnings from rickshaw pulling? The composition, along with the inability to buy food, also plays a role in food insecurity. The SCs, STs, and some sections of the OBCs, lower caste among them, who have either poor land base or very low land productivity are prone to food insecurity. The people affected by natural disasters who have to migrate to other areas in search of work are also among the most food insecure people. A high incidence of malnutrition prevails among women. This is a matter of serious concern as it puts even the unborn baby at the risk of malnutrition. A large proportion of pregnant and nursing mothers and children under the age of 5 years constitute an important segment of the food insecure population. According to the National Health and Family Survey (NHFS) 1998-99, the number of such women and children is approximately 11 crore. The food insecure people are disproportionately large in some regions of the country, such as economically backward states with high incidence of poverty, tribal and remote areas, regions more prone to natural disasters, etc. In fact, the states of Uttar Pradesh, eastern and southeastern parts, Bihar, Jharkhand, Odisha, West Bengal, Chhattisgarh, parts of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra account for largest number of food insecure people in the country. Hunger is an another aspect indicating food insecurity. Hunger is not just an expression of poverty, it brings about poverty. The attainment of food security therefore involves eliminating current hunger and reducing the risk of future hunger. Hunger has chronic and seasonal dimensions. Chronic hunger is a consequence of diets persistently inadequate in terms of quantity and or quality. Poor people suffer from chronic hunger because of their very low income and in turn inability to buy food even for survival. Seasonal hunger is related to cycles of food growing and harvesting. This is prevalent in rural areas because of the seasonal nature of agricultural activities and in urban areas because of casual laborers. For example, there is less work for casual construction laborers during the rainy season. This type of hunger exists when a person is unable to get work for the entire year. Table 4.2 percentage of households with hunger in India. Source Sagar 2004. The percentage of seasonal as well as chronic hunger has declined in India as shown in the above table. India is aiming at self-sufficiency in food grains since independence. After independence, Indian policymakers adopted all measures to achieve self-sufficiency in food grains. India adopted a new strategy in agriculture which resulted in green revolution, especially in the production of wheat and rice. Indira Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India, officially recorded the impressive strides of Green Revolution in agriculture by releasing a special stamp entitled Wheat Revolution in July 1968. The success of wheat was later replicated in rice. The increase in food grains was, however, disproportionate. The highest rate of growth was achieved in Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, which was 44.01 and 30.21 million tons in 2015-16. The total food grains production was 252.22 million tons in 2015-16 and it has changed to 275.68 million tons in 2016-17. Uttar Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh recorded a significant production in field of wheat which was 26.87 and 17.69 million tons in 2015-16 respectively. West Bengal and UP on the other hand recorded significant production of rice 15.75 and 12.51 million tons in 2015-16 respectively. Suggested activity: visit some farms in a nearby village and collect the details of food crops cultivated by the farmers. Food security in India. Since the advent of the Green Revolution in the early 1970s, the country has avoided famine even during adverse weather conditions. India has become self-sufficient in food grains during the last 30 years because of a variety of crops grown all over the country. The availability of food grains, even in adverse weather conditions or otherwise, at the country level has further been ensured with a carefully designed food security system by the government. This system has two components: A. Buffer stock and B. Public distribution system, that is PDS. What is buffer stock? Buffer stock is the stock of food grains, namely wheat and rice, procured by government through the Food Corporation of India. The FCI purchases wheat and rice from the farmers in states where there is surplus production. The farmers are paid a pre-announced price for their crops. This pre-announced price is called minimum support price (MSP). The MSP is declared by the government every year before the sowing season to provide incentives to farmers for raising the production of these crops. The purchased food grains are stored in granaries. Do you know why this buffer stock is created by the government? This is done to distribute food grains in the deficit areas and among the poorer strata of the society at a price lower than the market price, also known as the issue price. This also helps resolve the problem of shortage of food during adverse weather conditions or during the periods of calamity. What is the public distribution system? The food procured by the CI is distributed through government regulated ration shops among the poorer section of the society. This is called the public distribution system. PDS. The ration shops are now present in most localities, villages, towns, and cities. There are about 5.5 lakh ration shops all over the country. Ration shops, also known as fair price shops, keep stock of the food grains, sugar, and kerosene for cooking. These items are sold to people at a price lower than the market price. Any family with a ration card can buy a stipulated amount of these items. For example, 35 kg of grains, 5 liters of kerosene, 5 kgs of sugar, etc. every month from the nearby ration store. There are three kinds of ration cards: A. Antyodaya cards for the poorest of the poor. B. BPL cards for those below poverty line, and APL cards for all others. Suggested activity: visit your area's ration shop and get the following details. 1. When does the ration shop open? 2. What are the items sold at the ration shop? 3. Compare the prices of rice and sugar from the ration shop with the prices at any other grocery shop for families below poverty line. 4. Find out, do you have a ration card? What has your family recently bought with this card from the ration shop? Are there any problems that they face? Why are ration shops necessary? The introduction of rationing in India dates back to the 1940s against the backdrop of the Bengal famine. The rationing system was revived in the wake of an acute food shortage during the 1960s prior to the Green Revolution. In the wake of the high incidence of poverty levels as reported by the NSSO in the mid 1970s, three important food intervention programs were introduced: the public distribution system (PDS) for food grains, in existence earlier but strengthened thereafter; Integrated Child Development Services (ICDS), introduced in 1975 on an experimental basis; and Food for Work (FFW), introduced in 1977 to 1978. Over the years, several new programs have been launched and some have been restructured with the growing experience of administering the programs. At present, there are several poverty alleviation programs (PAPS) mostly in rural areas which have an explicit food component also, while some of the programs such as PDS, midday meals, etc., are exclusively food security programs. Most of the PAPS also enhance food security. Employment programs greatly contribute to food security by increasing the income of the poor. Suggested activity: gather detailed information about some of the programs initiated by the government which have food component. Rural Wage Employment Program, Employment Guarantee Schemes, Sampurna Gramin Rozgar Yojana, Midday Meal, Integrated Child Development Services, etc. Discuss with your teacher. The National Food Security Act 2013. This act provides for food and nutritional security life at affordable prices and enables people to live a life with dignity. Under this act, 75% of the rural population and 50% of the urban population have been categorized as eligible households for food security. Current status of the public distribution system. Public distribution system (PDS) is the most important step taken by the Government of India towards ensuring food security. In the beginning, the coverage of PDS was universal with non-discrimination between the poor and the non-poor. Over the years, the policy related to PDS has been revised to make it more efficient and targeted. In 1992, revamped public distribution system (RPDS) was introduced in 1700 blocks in the country. The target was to provide the benefits of PDS to remote and backward areas. From June 1997, in a renewed attempt, targeted public distribution system (TPDS) was introduced to adopt the principle of targeting the poor in all areas. It was for the first time that a differential price policy was adopted for poor and non-poor. Further, in 2000, two special schemes were launched, namely Antyodaya Anna Yojana (AAY) and Annapurna Scheme (APS), with special target groups of poorest of the poor and indigent senior citizens, respectively. The functioning of these two schemes was linked with the existing network of the PDS. Some important features of PDS are summarized in Table 4.3. The PDS has proved to be the most effective instrument of government policy over the years in stabilizing prices and making food available to the consumers at affordable prices. It has been instrumental in averting widespread hunger and famine by supplying food from surplus regions of the country to the deficit ones. In addition, the prices have been under revision in favor of poor households in general. The system, including the minimum support price and procurement, has contributed to an increase in food grain production and provided income security to farmers in certain regions. However, the public distribution system has faced severe criticism on several grounds. Instances of hunger are prevalent despite overflowing granaries. FCI godowns are overflowing with grains, with some rotting away and some being eaten by rats. Graph 4.2 shows the difference in food grain stocks in central pool and stocking norms. Antyodaya Ann Yojana AAY was launched in December 2000. Under this scheme, 1 crore of the poorest among the BPL families covered under the targeted public distribution system were identified. Poor families were identified by the respective state rural development departments through a below poverty line survey. 25 kilograms of food grains were made available to each eligible family at a highly subsidized rate of 2 rupees per kg for wheat and 3 rupees per kg for rice. This quantity has been enhanced from 25 to 35 kg with effect from April 2002. The scheme has been further expanded twice by additional 50 lakh BPL families in June 2003 and in August 2004. With this increase, 2 crore families have been covered under the AAY. Subsidy is a payment that a government makes to a producer to supplement the market price of a commodity. Subsidies can keep consumer price low while maintaining a higher income for domestic producers. Let's discuss. Study the graph 4.2 and answer the following questions. In which recent year food grain stock with the government was maximum? What is the minimum buffer stock norm for the FCI? Why were the FCI granaries overflowing with food grains? In 2014, the stock of wheat and rice with FCI was 65.3 million tons, which was much more than the minimum buffer norms. However, these remained consistently higher than the buffer norms. The situation improved with the distribution of food grains under the different schemes launched by the government. There is a general consensus that high level of buffer stocks of food grains is very undesirable and can be wasteful. The storage of massive food stocks has been responsible for high carrying costs in addition to wastage and deterioration in grain quality. Freezing of MSP for few years should be considered seriously. The increased food grains procurement at enhanced MSP is the result of the pressure exerted by leading food grain producing states such as Punjab, Haryana, and Andhra Pradesh. Moreover, as the procurement is concentrated in a few prosperous regions like Punjab, Haryana, Western Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, and to a lesser extent in West Bengal, and mainly of two crops, wheat and rice, increase in MSP has induced farmers particularly in surplus states, to divert land from production of coarse grains, which is the staple food of the poor, to the production of rice and wheat. The intensive utilization of water in the cultivation of rice has also led to environmental degradation and fall in the water level, threatening the sustainability of the agricultural development in these states. The rising MSP, that is minimum support prices, have raised the maintenance cost of procuring food grains by the government. Rising transportation and storage costs of the FCI are other contributing factors in this increase. As per the NSSO report number 558, in rural India, the per person per month consumption of rice has declined from 6.38 kg in 2004 5 to 5.98 kg in 2011 and 12. In urban India, the per person per month consumption of rice too has declined from 4.71 kg in 2004-5 to 4.49 kg in 2011-12. Per capita consumption of PDS rice has doubled in rural India and increased by 66% in urban India since 2004-5. The per capita consumption of PDS wheat has doubled since 2004-5 in both rural and urban India. PDS dealers are sometimes found resorting to malpractices like diverting the grains to open market to get better margin, is selling poor quality grains at ration shops, irregular opening of the shops, etc. It is common to find that ration shops regularly have unsold stocks of poor quality grains left. This has proved to be a big problem when ration shops are unable to sell. A massive stock of food grains piles up with the FCI. In recent years, there is another factor that has led to the decline of the PDS. Earlier, every family, poor and non-poor, had a ration card with a fixed quota of items such as rice, wheat, sugar, etc. These were sold at the same low price to every family. The three types of cards and the range of prices that you see today did not exist. A large number of families could buy food grains from the ration shops subject to a fixed quota. These included low income families whose incomes were marginally higher than the below poverty line families. Now, with the TPDS of three different prices, any family above the poverty line gets very little discount at the ration shop. The price for above poverty line family is almost as high as open market price, so there is little incentive for them to buy these items from the ration shop. Role of cooperatives in food security. The cooperatives are also playing an important role in food security in India, especially in the southern and western parts of the country. The cooperative society set up shops to sell low priced goods to poor people. For example, out of all fair price shops running in Tamil Nadu, around 94% are being run by the cooperatives. In Delhi, Mother Dairy is making strides in provision of milk and vegetables to the consumers at controlled rate decided by the government of Delhi. Amul is another success story of cooperatives in milk and milk products from Gujarat. It has brought about the white revolution in the country. These are a few examples of many more cooperatives running in different parts of the country, ensuring food security of different sections of the society. Similarly, in Maharashtra, Academy of Development has facilitated a network of NGOs for the setting up grain banks in different regions. ADS organizes training and capacity building programs on food security for NGOs. Grain banks are now slowly taking shape in different parts of Maharashtra. ADS efforts to set up grain banks to facilitate replication through other NGOs and to influence the government's policy on food security are thus paying rich dividends. The ADS Grain Bank program is acknowledged as a successful and innovative food security intervention. Summary: food security of a nation is ensured if all of its citizens have enough nutritious food available. All persons have the capacity to buy food of acceptable quality and there is no barrier on access to food. The people living below the poverty line might be food insecure all the time, while better off people might also turn food insecure due to calamity or disaster. Although a large section of people suffer from food and nutrition insecurity in India, The worst affected groups are landless or land poor households in rural areas and people employed in ill-paid occupations and casual laborers engaged in seasonal activities in the urban areas. The food insecure people are disproportionately large in some regions of the country, such as economically backward states with high incidence of poverty, tribal and remote areas, regions more prone to natural disasters, etc. To ensure availability of food to all sections of the society, the Indian government carefully designed food security system, which is composed of two components. First, buffer stock and B. Public distribution system. In addition to PDS, various poverty alleviation programs were also started, which comprised a component of food security. Some of these programs are integrated child development services, food for work, midday meals, Antyodaya, Anna Yojana, etc. In addition to the role of the government in ensuring food security, there are various cooperatives and NGOs also working intensively towards this direction. Exercises. How is food security ensured in India? Second, which are the people more prone to food insecurity? Third, which states are more food insecure in India? Fourth, do you believe that grain revolution has made India self-sufficient in food grains? How? 5. A section of people in India are still without food. Explain. 6. What happens to the supply of food when there is a disaster or a calamity? 7. Differentiate between seasonal hunger and chronic hunger. 8. What has our government done to provide food security to the poor? Discuss any two schemes launched by the government. 9. Why buffer stock is created by the government? 10. Write notes on minimum support price, B. Buffer stock, C. Issue price, D. Fair price shops. 11. What are the problems of the functioning of ration shops? 12. Write a note on the role of cooperatives in providing food and related items.